Welcome to the 2021 New Venture Championship semifinal round. This year, the New Venture Championship received entries from 75 teams representing 10 different countries. This reflects one of the advantages of having a virtual competition. It's open to all from around the world without the worry of traveling to Oregon for the event. The 16 teams you will see today were chosen by a panel of over 50 judges in our qualifying round that started back in February. Each track will have 4 teams, and during the event, those teams have 30 minutes to deliver their presentation and address questions from the panel of judges. This is a fully interactive event, meaning that the judges can interrupt and ask questions and at any time. The judges in the semifinals score the teams based on their submitted business plans, the presentation and question and answer, and their overall viability. One team from each track will advance to the finals. The semifinalists for this track are Renew Innovations, Sasin School of Management, Bangkok, Thailand. JUNO, the University of Oklahoma. LIRA, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. My Auto 2, the University of Michigan.
Good morning. We're Renew and we're offering an innovative platform technology. Our CEO and CTO invented Cellunate, a transparent biocoating solution, where once coated on a material, nanoparticles will deeply penetrate into the material to strengthen its structure and extend its lifespan, while the biopolymers add protection from water and moisture. Here you can see close-up images of cellulose fibers before and after coating. In the after photo, you can see that loose gaps seen in the before photo are filled, and the fibers are hugged more tightly and strongly together. Cellunate can preserve and protect all cellulose-based materials like paper, packaging, wood, and fabrics, all huge growing markets totaling $49 billion, all of which have been tested and proven, not to mention that so many things contain cellulose, and all can be applied with Cellunate. This technology was originally created to preserve books and artworks. It was validated by the European Paper Conservation in Austria and by experts under peer reviews and scientific publications. We also validated with real customers last year when we started selling and made $10,000 in revenue from Thailand's largest university libraries and online sales. But while the books market has high demand and a lack of competition, it deals mostly with the public sector, making it an incredibly slow process, and the pain is truly felt by only a small group of people, while the opportunities of Cellunate's other applications are so much greater. So it will remain our cash cow, but here's where it gets exciting. We've entered the billion-dollar market of corrugated packaging coatings, where demand is strong, people lose money, and the environment is at stake. Then we will enter the wood and fabrics market soon after. But let's talk about packaging. Here is why Cellunate is the needed solution to make this growing market more sustainable.
Every year, over 4 billion trees are cut down to make paper. That's equal to deforesting 2.5 football fields every single minute. And demand for paper packaging continues to go up by 4.41% due to the boom of e-commerce. And what this means is that we suffer from huge biodiversity loss due to rising temperatures. So recycled packaging is the answer and has grown to 55% of the industry and continues to grow. But it's weak. And weak means financial losses, as 10% of the world's goods get damaged during shipment, costing companies up to $260 billion every year, leading to brand damage and obstruction of goods. So it's not sustainable, not efficient, and costly. And solutions for weak packaging exist today. One way is to add double walls to increase strength, but this adds weight and doubles cost. And it's also not eco-friendly, as it requires more wood chips. Another way is to add wood glue or resin. These chemicals might make boxes stronger, but they also make them more brittle. They're also smelly, toxic, and expensive, increasing costs by around 30%. And foam support can also be added, but this is not sustainable. And water-based coatings require heating and drying processes, which increase costs as well. So the industry demands for more sustainable solutions for stronger and cheaper boxes. And that's where we come in. Cellunate is the sustainable solution that offers all of these benefits. We conducted universally standardized tests to determine increase in strength and durability, like the burst strength test and the ring crush test, with 3 manufacturers. And we found that Cellunate can increase packaging bursting strength by around 80% and increase compression strength by around 70%. So we help increase strength, reduce costs, and the need for deforestation and water.
So here's our value proposition. With Cellunate, packaging manufacturers can produce high-grade boxes from weak recycled materials, reducing costs. Packaging manufacturers can increase strength and moisture resistance to weak recycled boxes, maximize profits by using cheaper materials, improve efficiency, and offer brands more benefits. So consumer brands like Samsung or LG can reduce costs incurred from shipping damages and increase CSR branding for using biodegradable solutions that lower carbon footprint.
We offer efficiency because we get rid of heating and drying processes which are needed for current water-based solutions, making up 28% of the current majority of the market. So we save time, energy, and increase operational efficiency. We're also eco-friendly since our solution is biopolymer-based, which has environmental benefits. Cellunate is also scalable because it can be inserted into any standard rolling machine, unlike existing suppliers that require you to send boards to be coated on site.
So real quick, just a quick question on that from my understanding. The application of the product on corrugated material, it's sprayed on? It's like in the example, it's sprayed onto the material?
Right, so it's a transparent coating, which you could spray on, but you could also dip it. But how we do it in the manufacturer's factory is just insert it into those rolling machines that are shaped like cylinders, and then apply just like a coating or a wax.
Got it. And real quick on the archived documents, books, and art, how is it applied on those?
So it depends for books or archives, but for instance, like archives or maps, it's more easily applied on by spray. So it can also be applied on as a spray, but for books that are already binded, they can just dip the whole thing in the solution and it will seep in and coat the entire book for you.
Without warping and damaging, doesn't warp the pages or anything?
No, since it's solvent-based, it's not water-based and it won't affect the paper.
Got it. And then art, it's sprayed on or dipped?
Sprayed on.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So our technology is also patented and we have full rights to commercialize this. The base technology was patented in 2016 under the University of Graz with our CEO listed as the lead inventor. And we've obtained the university's express consent to commercialize this royalty-free outside of Europe because this patent was not registered for the PCT in time. And currently we're also filing another patent under the company specifically for the packaging application. And we're also currently conducting R&D to create our own biopolymers from agricultural waste, which will patent this in 2022, but more on this later.
So does the process that comes from the waste products that you're currently developing, does it have to be fully developed and proven before you can get the patent on it?
Actually, we're gonna sell it first, and then while we are developing it, we're gonna sell it a version that is not really made from waste, but we will R&D and made from waste, and we will sell it in year 3. So the global coating paper additives market is the $1 billion market with 3.4% growth rate. The Asian market is worth $370 billion. And by capturing only 0.03% of Thailand's market within 2 years, we would make $13.8 million. Many international brands like McDonald's, Apple, Amazon have promoted the use of paper over plastics. Also, the OCC, recycling and use of all corrugated containers rate has also increased significantly each year, which implies the growth of the recycled packaging market even more than in the past.
Our target group consists of large and medium-scale corrugated box manufacturers. And in the first 2 years, we will sell locally in Thailand, where 14 million tons of boxes are produced each year with an annual growth of 17%. Most importantly, $250 million was generated from one company, and that's SCG Packaging, one of the largest packaging companies in Southeast Asia and a subsidiary of SCG, which Forbes had named one of the largest companies in the world. They're testing with Cellunate now and had offered us a pre-seed investment after we met at Sprint Accelerator last year, in which they co-founded. And we recently met with their CEO, COO, and head of R&D to discuss a potential joint venture. Our objective is to gain insights and validate pain points to find our product market fit, then drive awareness, educate, and sell. We will reach our target through referrals by leveraging our network of box manufacturers and paper mills to set us up with decision makers like the Thai Packaging Association, who will then connect us to more manufacturers in the community. We will exhibit at coating expos like the Bangkok Surface and Coatings Expo to attract more customers. We're now in MVP, where we're testing with manufacturers and discussing how to integrate Cellunate into their production. And we expect to make our first sale later this year. We're now working with 3 manufacturers, including SCG Packaging, and a construction company with high need for stronger packaging. So we're now just one step away from closing our first sale in this industry. After which, we will build traction through PR and branding to build awareness and credibility to further expose our product to market leaders, setting a market trend for box manufacturers to follow, triggering more trials and purchases. Then in year 3, Cellunate will be commercialized outside of Thailand through IP licensing to large-scale chemical companies with expertise and resources to manufacture and distribute products, such as DuPont, 3M, SCG, and Ube, all of whom regularly license and commercialize technologies. Additionally, we're already in talks with Ube and SCG, and both have offered us pre-seed investments and partnership offers. Our goal is to have multiple partners so we can enter different regions with their local experts. By licensing, we can enter foreign markets quicker and easier than by manufacturing and exporting ourselves. We can realize our ROI much faster and eliminate need for CapEx entirely. Our revenue will include licensing fees, royalty fees of 5% of gross revenue per unit produced using Cellunate, and sub-licensing royalties. And we will exhibit Cellunate in coating expos in China, India, and Indonesia to attract more partners.
So sustainability plays a huge part of our operations. The majority of our raw materials can be sourced locally and naturally, and we will use funds to innovate a process to develop our own biopolymers from biological waste rather than importing them currently. And this will help us reduce our lead time and costs in the long run, and at the same time promote Thai local suppliers. And we've already started talking to potential partners such as Ube Group and SEG to kickstart this R&D process. Our key raw materials are non-hazardous and can be sourced from plant fibers and biological waste like eggshells. They're also listed on the Safer Chemicals Ingredients list issued by the EPA, which filters out harmful and toxic chemicals. And during production, we take measures to dispose of our solvent safely so that it doesn't affect the environment or harm humans. And finally, at the output stage, our product can easily be applied and any leftover can be evaporated safely.
But right now, the product that you're about to finalize a sale on is not, I mean, the biodegradable one that's made from waste is currently starting development, it's in development.
The biopolymers are currently undergoing R&D. Yeah.
Got it. So the opportunity though is still exists just on what you currently have and are about to close the sale on?
Actually, what we are selling right now is already the biopolymer, but we will make it from waste.
So the biopolymers are a raw material that we need to create cellulose. We have a plan to create them in-house rather than importing them from abroad, which we're currently doing right now, but it's quite expensive. So it's just our way of mitigating the supply risk.
So the scope of the opportunity is contingent on finalizing that development and having success in doing that cost effectively, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Timeline.
So this is our timeline into the packaging market. We'll make our first revenue by the end of this year and sell locally to build a foundation. Then we will patent our in-house biopolymers that we're developing now and file for PCT. Then we will expand regionally to the 3 countries with the highest market growth rates, beginning with China, where 30% of the world's boxes are produced, then to India and Indonesia. Plus, McKinsey reported that 90% of consumers in these countries are most willing to pay for green as compared to the rest of the world. So clients will be more eager to switch to cellulose.
So Renew is led by our CEO, Dr. Lanjagon, who's the mastermind behind Cellunate. He's a PhD chemistry graduate from the University of Graz in Austria, and he has significant experience in product development, specializing in nanotechnology and biopolymer science. And with the help of our COO, Parinton, the 2 of them handle all of our R&D and operations. And on our business side, we have our CMO, Kawisra, who's helped popular brands like KFC and Psycho boost sales and ROIs. She oversees all of our marketing strategy and execution, while our CFO, Shoti Rose, specializes in startup financing and venture capital. She's responsible for all of our finances and pricing. And then there's me, the CBDO, and I handle our business development and legal matters. Our CEO and CMO make up our current board, and we have 1 open seat for an investor. We're also advised by leading professionals from various fields, and these experts have decades of experience and are leaders in industries that are highly relevant to our business.
Here is our projected revenue, 11.6 million NPV, around 160% IRR, with 26 months payback period. We will focus on sales in Thai market on the first 2 years and expand to the other countries through licensing in the following years, which will significantly increase our profit. So we asked for $1 million for scaling up the business with 1 seat of board directors and equity in exchange. The first 40% of the investment will be used in producing in-house polymer, which will completely replace by year 3. This will help increase gross profit and reduce lead time. The next 30% is for marketing and boosting sales with the trade shows to maximize our brand penetration. Another 18% will be used for facility innovation and buying new machines for production. The last 12% will be spent on people to serve demand in second years and beyond. Renew plans to exit in 8 years via trade sale to companies that focuses on innovation and environment sustainability, like SCG, Ubek Group, both of which we have already in talks with, and they expressed the interest in partnerships, or to 3M. We are biocloning technology with high potential in many industries. We promise huge returns, so contact us. Thank you.
Nice job, you guys. And I really like the way you presented your slides. It was really easy to read. And I also appreciate you joining us at 11 p.m. your time. So thank you for doing that. The question that I have is about your partnerships. I'm intrigued by the Ube Group and SCG. What is it that they want to see before they'll move forward with signing an agreement?
Well, with SCG, the current next step is we're about to send over more samples for them to test So SCG does many kinds of packaging. So it's not limited to just corrugated packaging. So they just want to conduct more tests on various different kinds of packaging.
So the test they're conducting is on their materials. You're sending them your product. are you guiding them along in the testing, or are you just sending it to them and letting them do their own thing? Are you sending them some more information to just keep that relationship going so they don't just throw it on a back burner?
Yes, we're keeping a close relationship with the R&D team. We speak to them at least once a week, and our CEO and CTO, who is the lead inventor on this on Cellunate, he is the one helping them, guiding them on the way to most maximize use of the solution.
And last question, then I know my fellow judges have questions. Where is your CEO right now? Hopefully he's not sleeping.
He's here in Bangkok, but he's not a student, so.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thanks.
Yeah, nice job, you guys. Thank you for that presentation. My question initially is, how did you come up with the price point that you're using, and what conversations have you had so far with those partners to validate your price point?
Actually, our price point comes from the comparing to the current solution in the market right now, and we talk to the industry expert. If we propose this kind of price, will they be able to afford it right now? Because right now the cost is kind of high, but it will be reduced. So we try to ask them if it's okay with this price point, and then it will be reduced soon.
Can you just explain the pricing to his point? I didn't understand on the income statement. I didn't understand the unit, the sales units and the sales per unit pricing. I understand the licensing fee and the IP fee later, but the per unit, can you explain how you break it? How does it work?
Okay. So basically in the first 2 years, we're gonna sell within only in Thailand. So we're gonna give them our product and let them use it. But in the next few years, we will start licensing to the other countries as well, but we also still sell in Thailand. So we still have the unit volume here.
And you're starting to work with SCG, and you're sending them samples. Any concerns about them reverse engineering and saying, well, let's figure this out without having to pay a licensing fee?
Yes, so we are in the, we have an NDA where they already agreed on signing and everything, and it's a standardized one that we've agreed upon.
And it seems like so much is riding on the ability to have a locally based biopolymer. What assurances can you give us that you will be able to come up with that solution?
Right. So, the biopolymer is an important part of our business, and we're very lucky to have our CEO and CTO who is actually highly specialized in this field. He has a lot of significant previous experience with the previous biopolymer from his PhD days at the University of Graz. So he had to work with biopolymers since that time back in 2015 when they were coming up with the one for the books and archives market. We've talked to him about this. He's given us a time frame that it could be done perhaps in like 12 to 15 months. Yeah.
But it's a pretty high certainty that it can be done. The probability is very high.
I can't really hear, but yes, we're very certain that we're very confident that we will be able to finish that within like around a year.
And because it's a different formulation, then you'd have to get a new patent for that new formulation.
Yeah. So that patent would be more for the process of creating it, but the first two would be for the actual product. Yeah.
With the initial investment of $1 million, how much will you each pay yourself from that?
Actually, we will spend ourselves $1,000 a month for this one. So just for us to survive, and we will try to maximize. We will try our best to use it for the R&D purpose to increase our wealth in the future.
And the $1 million, you I think you said it in there, but what percent of the company would $1 million own?
Right now we are only 100%, and for the equity, it is negotiable.
What is the current breakdown of? And sorry if you said this, my dog was barking. I had to step aside for a minute. What does your current cap table look like? What does the equity distribution look like right now?
So currently our CEO holds 35%, our CEO holds 5%, and each of us have 20%. So the three of us make 60% of the company.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. Great product. In your write-up, you mentioned that the raw materials are commercial grade and maybe too expensive, and then said that you were doing R&D to fix that. How confident are you that you'll be able to be successful with your R&D?
Actually, for the commercialized grade right now, we already done it, and it's in the we are filing the patent for it. But for the another one that we're gonna use upcycling from the waste, we are going to do the R&D, and it will be 100% used in the year 3.
And how did you do your financial cost analysis when you haven't done the R&D yet?
Actually, we have get the information from our CEO. Right now, he is doing the R&D to do that. Okay. So we have some of the information already. So we are really sure that we can do it.
Confident.
Confident.
Yeah. 100%.
If you did the partnership with an SCG, is there a chance that they would want, exclusivity and not allowing you to sell to other partners?
Yeah, there is a chance they would make that request, but then we would have to sit down with them and see if it would be worth it, because that would be closing us off to a lot of other potential partners as well.
Yeah, that's also why we're very open still to talking to more partners. We're also still speaking to Ube, which is a chemical company, and they're very interested in helping us do R&D production about the in-house polymers as well. And they have, since it's a conglomerate, they have factories all over the world. So we were also thinking that that could be very good for us as well. But however, on the other hand, SCG is a really large packaging company, in which case it would be, they would be the ones using it as well. And they also have a chemical company that could also help us globalize. So
when you look at just the obvious market for the product that you've laid out in your introduction, I mean, it's a clear need in the marketplace. Why do you think one of these large chemical companies has not tried to attack and address this themselves with all of their knowledge, process, and address this need independently?
They might try to do it, but this technology is kind of hard, and like our CEO have spent like 5 years to develop it. They show us a very strong interest in our technology, and before we let them use our product, we ask them to sign an NDA so it's safe, and they are not able to copy it.
Yes, and they've also shared, SCG, the CEO himself also shared with us some insights, because they've been acquiring a lot of coatings company or any kinds of company that's related to, I guess, making the packaging industry more sustainable like ourselves. However, their R&D isn't quite completed yet. So that's why they're also interested in using Cellunate to fulfill those other technologies because it's still incomplete. So they're hoping that maybe we could help with that as well.
And I do understand this is the big market, the corrugated market, but what is the potential in the book and art protection market? What's the global potential in that? Is it significant or?
It's large, however, it's not as repeatable as the packaging market, which is why we also pivoted from the books market into the packaging market.
Got it.
I have a question about the value prop to the purchaser. So let's say SCG agrees to do this and they're distributing to, say, Amazon or Zappos, some of the brands that you put up there. How does the price change for someone like Amazon who's buying huge amounts of corrugated? How much more will they have to pay, say, in a year, percentage-wise? And then what's the value proposition to someone like me, a consumer who gets an Amazon box on my porch, right? So can you walk me through that a little bit more?
Sorry, like it's kind of a bad signal. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry. Okay, so two-part question. The first is, how much more money is this going to cost someone like an Amazon who's already purchasing corrugated, right? And so how much more are they going to have to pay? And what's the value proposition to them when that box is going to end up on my front porch is the second part of that.
Okay, for the cost right now, if in the first year it will increase by 150%, but in the last year it will increase by 50%, which is comparable to the other solution. And for the value proposition right now, we really focus on the sustainability because the solution right now is not very sustained. Like adding foam or the wood glue or even the majority method of the world, which is water-based, they still require heat and dry, which is increase the operation cost and also use of the fuel.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're really excited to be here. We are Team JUNO. We just want to start off by real quickly introducing our team. My name is Dilna Abdurexity. I'm currently an MBA and Master of Science candidate at the University of Oklahoma. I've worked in corporate governance and have experience in management consulting. I've also worked at a number of different startups, most recently a high growth tech startup in London. I am the founder and chief executive officer at JUNO.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaylee Hassel and I'm currently a candidate for my Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering here at the University of Oklahoma. I have a lot of experience in product design and development as I developed my first product my senior year of high school. I also have a lot of hands-on manufacturing experience from everything to metals, composites, and plastics. And I've interned at NASA as a flight controller intern in the electrical and thermal systems departments for the International Space Station. And at JUNO, I'm serving as the Chief R&D Officer.
Hi, I'm JD Epperson. I'm currently pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Engineering from the University of Oklahoma. And I've worked in digital fabrication and prototyping through the OU Innovation Hub and performed videography work for various organizations, including Fox Sports and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for JUNO.
Okay, so every year, 20 million pregnancy tests and 78 million ovulation tests are used and discarded in the US. And of course, they are by and large all made of plastic. At about 5 inches long each, on average, if you were to stack all of these tests up on top of each other, they would reach a height of about 41,500 Eiffel Towers. So obviously that is a ridiculous amount of plastic waste. And plastic pollution is one of the most pressing environmental concerns of our time. It has detrimental impacts on our planet and all of its inhabitants. It is estimated that by 2050, the plastic in the ocean will outweigh fish. So plastic is, of course, not only very unsightly, but it is also dangerous. One example is that it can kill animals through either entanglement or starvation if they end up eating so much plastic that there's no room for anything else. And then people can eat those animals and end up ingesting some of that plastic in turn. Also, it takes hundreds, if not up to 1,000 years for plastic to break down in the environment. And as it breaks down, it turns into these microscopic particles called microplastics that can exist in the air or drinking water. And microplastics have been shown to cause liver damage, cell damage, and reproductive organ damage in humans. One of the best ways to cut down on plastic pollution is to reduce the manufacturing and sale of single-use plastics. And of course, single-use plastics are products that are used for one purpose and then immediately discarded. And single-use plastics account for over 40% of the plastic waste in the environment. So JUNO was formed when we started thinking about how to cut down on single-use plastics, and we realized that the pregnancy and fertility industry has a lot of products that by their very nature have to be single-use, but no one was making eco-friendly alternatives to these products. That is why at JUNO we have created the first 100% biodegradable pregnancy test and ovulation test. The market opportunity we foresee is huge. The North American pregnancy and ovulation test market is currently at around 500 million, and it's expected to reach 600 million by 2024, demonstrating a compound annual growth rate of about 4.5%. Our total available market is the around 9 million annual pregnancy test users and the 6.1 million women who struggle with infertility in the US. As for our target market, we have conducted over 115 face-to-face interviews with women, and the data that we've gathered shows around 90% of them consider themselves to be eco-conscious and regularly make purchasing decisions based on the environmental impact of a product. Therefore, we've calculated 90% of the 15 million, and we've come up with 13.5 million for our target market. Finally, for our serviceable obtainable market, we believe we could achieve 3% market penetration, which would leave us with close to 400,000 JUNO customers. Breaking that down even further, millennials and Gen Z make up the majority of women in their childbearing years. Millennials and Gen Z are especially concerned about the environment, and they are more eco-conscious than any previous generation. 60% say that they would pay more for an eco-friendly product, and 35% of Gen Z say that they would pay 25% more, which is right around where our tests are priced. There are 83 million millennials in the US, and Gen Z recently became the largest generation in the US with a population of over 90 million. So we expect to see that as members of Gen Z grow older and begin to have children of their own, our target market will expand even further as well. And now moving on to our customer segments. All sorts of women use these tests for a variety of different reasons. Of course, the most obvious user of pregnancy tests are women who believe they may be pregnant, but we have identified several other groups who will use these tests. About 11 million women are on hormonal birth control in the US, and hormonal birth control can make a woman stop having her period. So to ensure that this contraceptive is working, these women will periodically take pregnancy tests since they don't have a missed period to signal that they may be pregnant. Ovulation tests are used.
Clarification question. You mentioned that JUNO was cheaper than the alternative products. I thought Clear Blue was cheaper.
We actually stated that our customer base is willing to pay more, and since we're providing a differential value to the customer, our products are going to be priced a bit higher than some of the competitors. And we can get into this more later, but pregnancy tests, they range in price from $1 to $20, just depending on, brand, or, if it has the digital view versus just the typical test strip, stuff like that. So there's really a huge sort of variety of prices that you'll see.
Okay, I'll wait for the explanation.
All right, I think I was on ovulation tests. So for ovulation tests, they're used, of course, to determine when a woman is ovulating, as you may have guessed. They are often used by women who are trying to conceive, and unfortunately, infertility has been a growing issue. The birth rate for women in their 40s has increased. More women now are becoming first-time mothers in their 40s. However, as age increases, fertility decreases, and women in their 30s have around a 20% chance of conceiving each cycle, and women in their 40s have an under 5% chance. Of course, now with women waiting longer than ever before to have children, we expect to see higher rates of infertility and therefore higher usage of ovulation tests. Finally, the rhythm method of birth control is growing in popularity. It involves women avoiding intercourse during her ovulation. So these women need to take ovulation tests to determine precisely when their ovulation is occurring. So of course we have these customer segments, but who exactly are we solving a problem for? Meet Ashley. Ashley is one of the women who we interviewed. She is 33 years old. She and her husband have been struggling with infertility for a number of years, and Ashley buys up to 50 ovulation tests in bulk at a time, but she feels terrible about all the waste that she's creating. She can see these tests pile up every month when she uses them because a woman can take 3 ovulation tests every single day of the week that her ovulation is occurring. So that can be 21 tests. So she sees them pile up. She feels terrible about the waste. And so when we told her about our products, she was delighted. And she said that she would happily pay more to make sure she's not harming the environment. We know that there are many, many more women like Ashley whose needs are going unfulfilled. And that is why JUNO has created these biodegradable tests. And now Kaylee will take us on a more in-depth discussion of our product.
Thanks, Dilna. Currently, no other company on the market provides a fully biodegradable solution to pregnancy and ovulation tests. And while we know that we face a unique challenge against large and established brands such as Clearblue or First Response, we are incredibly focused on aligning our product to the values of our customer. And that is someone who cares about the environment. Additionally, the tests that big companies like Clearblue and First Response create are made of materials that are actually detrimental to the environment, such as heavy metals, plastics, and batteries. And this kind of shows that there's a clear disconnect from individuals that we cater to. Even our most eco-conscious competitor, Eco-Response, provides a product that is just 90% biodegradable and it's non-compostable. Also, it's only able to be purchased online. And we found in our surveys that over 64% of women we interviewed preferred to purchase their tests in stores. And Eco-Response is overlooking this by not making marketing efforts in that area. So JUNO has a clear competitive advantage. JUNO pregnancy and ovulation tests are not only 100% biodegradable, but in natural conditions can completely decompose in just 240 days. And this is without the use of any kind of specialized processes or chemicals or tools that you typically see biodegradable materials, requiring to biodegrade. To further target this market, additionally, our packaging will also emphasize sustainability, with the box and inner packaging sleeve being made of completely biodegradable recycled cardboard, all while maintaining a competitively priced product.
Hey, Kaylee,
yes.
Just let me interrupt for 1 second. So on your price, though, you say it's a clearly a differentiated premium product because of the sustainability, but you're making the assumption that you're going to sell everything at the retail price because the margin off of your cost is only 24%. But if you're going to be in retail, you're going to be selling at wholesale, which is going to severely restrict the margin. It just looks so tight to me. There was no discussion about wholesale price. It was just kind of retail to your retail $15.99 down to $11.34 cost of goods. It just sounded very tight to me if the majority of your sales would come through retailer, because Walgreens is clearly gonna not pay $15.99.
Yeah, we discuss a bit more about our distribution strategy in a little bit. We are going to eventually hope to make that move into those larger retailers, but we're going to start off to keep our costs as low as possible with online distributors or with smaller retailers.
But isn't that going to severely handicap you then? It's much harder to go up in price than it is to go down. But if you start online at $15.99, and then you're going to sell brick and mortar pharmacies or retail your product, how is that going to work where you're saying, oh, now we're going to have to work in a middleman who's going to require a different, a much lower price than what you're selling online for? It just, there's a disconnect there to me, I think, and a big risk.
Okay. Honestly, I think that's a really great point that you brought up, and that's really great feedback for us going forward. Unfortunately, we haven't started marketing our product yet, so we would definitely keep these things in mind and make those changes as we go along.
Kind of on the same line, do you have any opportunities to, or have you looked into any opportunities to lower your costs as you think about the way you're producing and the assumptions you have in that? I agree, it seems like you'll have to get your costs down to like the $3 or $4, maybe $5 range to be at the type of price point you're looking for. Are there any opportunities to lower cost to that level?
Yeah, actually, as we further go through our manufacturing processes and advance them a little bit more, get more comfortable with them, we will look into opportunities to further reduce the cost of our product. And
so I can't help but not ask this one. I know you still have more slides. But on the competitive landscape, how come you don't have LIA on there, LIA, the startup in Philadelphia, who is claiming to be the first and only flushable and biodegradable test where it biodegrades in just weeks? Is it because they're not doing the ovulation test piece? Can you talk to us more about LIA?
Yeah, so that's a big part of it. I think a lot of our sales, up to a third, possibly up to half of our sales are going to come from ovulation tests. Ovulation tests are used maybe as a whole, not as frequently as pregnancy tests. You don't really think about ovulation tests that much, but the women who do use ovulation tests use many, many more ovulation tests than a woman who is using a pregnancy test, if that makes sense. So I also believe LIA has just barely within the past few weeks actually started selling their product. It wasn't on the market for a very long time. They were in production for, I think, since 2014. But it was just very recently that they actually were able to start selling their product. So we didn't anticipate them to get on the market as quickly. We also believe that they're sort of catering more towards someone who's looking for privacy or being discreet with their pregnancy test. For us, we are not as concerned about that. We believe that the women who would use our pregnancy test, they're not necessarily the ones who would need to or feel the need to hide their pregnancy. And that's kind of why we haven't considered them in our slide before you.
Okay. I would recommend adding them on the competitive landscape because they're still going to take market share, especially because they're 100% biodegradable, and their 2-pack is $13.99 for a 2-pack.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much for the information.
Can I just ask on the so much of the sustainability is just, it's a feel good, like, okay, I have A versus B, and if I go B, at least I'm getting most of the way there. Where I'm going is on Eco Response, 90% biodegradable, and all their packaging on Amazon and so forth. I mean, that's right in their product name, biodegradable, without people going into the fact that it's only 90%. So how do you guys look at that? Kind of what's your point of view? I know 100% is better, but I'm just wondering if for the average consumer, they just look at it and say, okay, you know, I'm at least 90% of the way there, so and it's a little bit cheaper, so I'll go that path.
Yeah, the biggest issue that they're facing is that because they're 90% biodegradable, you can't actually compost their products. And that's one of the questions on their Amazon page is someone was actually asking, like, can I compost your test? And they said, unfortunately, no, you can't. And so we kind of took that to mean that's pretty important to our target customers, being able to naturally compost this kind of product if we're going to emphasize our biodegradability, our sustainability, then the folks that would want that kind of thing, that kind of product would want it to probably be the most biodegradable or most sustainable it can be.
They do actually on that same customer Q&A, the Echo Response does say they're working on 100% biodegradable option. Sure
yeah, I've spoken with them. I believe I was in contact with their CEO. It sounded like the guy in charge because he sounded very stressed out. But he said that they are having quite a bit of difficulty because the test window has, or at least now their test window is plastic, and just the whole R&D process is quite lengthy. And after that, they might have to go back and get FDA approval. So that's why I believe we have that advantage of just starting straight off looking at that 100% biodegradability.
All right, I'll go ahead. So we know that giving our customers the ability to reduce their negative impact on the environment while still delivering 99% accurate test results is incredibly powerful. And especially when that option isn't that much more expensive than our competitors. And we'll move on into our approvals. With the type of product that we're creating, one of the first hurdles that we're going to have to overcome is FDA approval and approval by other regulatory agencies. So pregnancy and ovulation tests are classified as in vitro medical devices by the FDA and therefore require regulatory clearance before they can be put on the market. So in terms of classification, pregnancy tests are a class 2 product and ovulation tests are a class 1 product. And both of these classifications require a 510(k) clearance known as a pre-market notification. And now this may seem like a lot, but because JUNO pregnancy tests use a proven hormone detection system, we can gain FDA approval in anywhere from about 90 to 180 days. And this is primarily as the FDA confirms product accuracy and proper labeling. Furthermore, since our ovulation tests are only a class 1 product, their 510(k) clearance will be approved faster than the pregnancy tests. And we estimate that that could happen in as quickly as 30 days. And while we can get through this process relatively quickly, protecting our image and identity is incredibly important to us. And we're currently seeking a design patent for JUNO's pregnancy and ovulation tests in order to protect our product and our brand. And we believe that pursuing a patent would be a worthwhile investment and that we could best achieve this with an emphasis on our product's unique design and characteristics. And of course, there are currently plenty of patents awarded to other pregnancy tests on the market for distinctive functions. Biodegradability as a whole is not a patentable concept, and so we don't find any conflict in introducing JUNO to the market. And of course, as you may have noticed, no one on our team is currently a lawyer. So we want to make sure that this process is done like 100% correctly. So to reduce the possibility of disputes, we will also hire a patent attorney to perform a patent search, investigate possible liabilities, and to submit patent applications. And with the required patent search progress estimated to be completed in about 1 to 3 weeks, this will allow us to quickly adjust or adapt our products if necessary. So we have a lot of opportunity here. So moving on to our key milestones. Currently, we are in the commitment phase of our startup, meaning that we're still working to develop our products and our processes and continue to acquire funding. In terms of how we're going to manufacture and produce our product, we are also seeking a strategic partnership with Biophase, a supplier of bioplastic alternatives. Their manufacturing process turns avocado pits, something that was previously discarded as waste, into biodegradable raw material. While the avocado trees also that they plant remove as much CO2 from the environment as required in Biophase's production, and thus it creates a carbon neutral product. And because Biophase takes something that was previously discarded as waste and turns it into a new product, as opposed to making a new product altogether, we believe that Biophase most closely matches our mission in reducing an environmental footprint. And going in a little bit more into manufacturing logistics, presently we plan to manufacture all of our products in-house. And we're going to do this because we feel that it'll allow us to maintain strict quality control standards and react more quickly to market demand. However, as we grow, we aim to diversify future production and by outsourcing, which will allow for a greater manufacturing capacity and flexibility, and also save us some money in the process. However, we will still work intensively with our quality assessment engineers and personnel to ensure that these products meet our standards. We plan on acquiring and requiring Six Sigma certifications for our engineering personnel and suppliers, and as well as getting LEED certified on all of our facilities. And finally, we also foresee our business rapidly expanding to a variety of other product offerings in the pregnancy and early childhood markets. Something that's become increasingly popular with the pandemic and everything else are subscription boxes. You see them for makeup, food, pretty much anything and everything. So why not pregnancy and ovulation tests? We also plan on introducing a reusable pregnancy and ovulation test in the future, allowing our customers to reduce their environmental impact even further and save some money in the process. So this market is incredibly underserved and has a ton of opportunities to explore, and we are very excited about it. And JD will now show us a model of our pregnancy tests.
Thank you, Kaylee. We believe awareness of our product will be critical to our strategy, and this requires a well-executed marketing plan. At JUNO, it's going to be important to have a strong, distinctive brand identity. This will help us position ourselves as the preferred choice for a sustainable fertility product. We've chosen our brand colors deliberately so that our product visually stands out on shelves from competitors that typically will feature pink and blue packaging. We want to create a powerful first impression for our customers so that they feel like they're buying something that's fresh, modern, and different. In our interviews, many people said visually appealing packaging was one of the biggest determining factors in buying a product because it can signal the quality of the product. And then, of course, considering our environmental mission, the message on our packaging, as well as the materials used for our packaging, will clearly communicate our dedication to sustainability and how we're fighting single-use plastic waste, which has been an extremely prevalent issue the past few years. And moving further into our marketing strategy, our marketing deliverables and advertisements will focus on communicating our dedication to the environment. We will initially distribute our products through specialty retailers and environmental boutiques. This will allow us to leverage the trust and close relationships these boutiques have fostered with their customer base and create a sense of authenticity for our tests. We will then seek to distribute at larger retailers like Walgreens and Target. We don't plan to initially distribute in larger stores because from our research, we found that many of these stores require up to 3 years worth of company sales volume, marketing budgets, and business references in order to qualify for space on their shelves. Therefore, we will attempt to acquire shelf space at these larger stores after gaining a following and establishing credibility with the smaller retailers. We'll also seek to keep our initial marketing costs low with online marketing and social media advertising. One of the major ways we will do that is through strategic partnerships with lifestyle influencers, mainly on Instagram and Facebook. Pew Research found that women engage with Instagram and Facebook more than men, and we found in our interviews that over half of women made one of their recent purchases because of an influencer post.
Hey, James, I think that's a good strategy and approach. I just think when you look at your financials, there's only $10,000 in your budget for marketing. So it's a little bit of a disconnect about how you're going to create that community, brand awareness, all that. And, Malika, you couldn't get Malika one post, one 30-second probably story from Malika for 10 grand. So I just have challenged kind of the reconciliation between the budget, or the disconnect between the budget and what your very good objectives are in the marketing. But I think it's going to cost a lot more than what you're looking at here.
For sure.
I also noticed the disconnect in the budget on training for the $14 an hour employees for Six Sigma. I think that would be a fairly expensive undertaking.
Yeah, so Six Sigma certifications are typically decently expensive. We would, of course, focus on getting our higher level employees, such as our engineers and our quality engineers, to get these certifications first so that they can hopefully pass this training down to our more production-based workers. Also, Six Sigma does offer, I believe, partnerships with businesses and group trainings. So we hope that we can save some money that way as well.
On the kind of focusing on the retailers, which Paul was talking about, my question is, it seems like it's like inverted. You know, if you ask somebody where would you start, you had said small boutiques and then larger retailers and then eventually online partners. It seems like it should be turned upside down. I mean, coming out of COVID, I think the small retailers are decimated, many of them closing. And, as much as, some people dislike Amazon, some of their practices, we all have boxes showing up every day from Amazon. And if you look at Clearblue, I mean, they've got products that have 20,000 customer reviews on them. So that's a demonstration that people are buying their products, pregnancy tests on Amazon, and it costs nothing to go on Amazon. You just give them the 15% revenue share, where a retailer, could have as much as 50% market margin requirements, depending on the type of retail, as well as paying for co-op advertising, shelf space, damage allowance, markdowns, etc. So can you talk a little bit more about why you wouldn't go online first, and even with your own website as well?
In our strategy, we do outline that we're going to start with online distribution and smaller retailers. I believe we might be running out of time, so I don't know if I can keep going if we do hit time.
You can answer that question. Go ahead and answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, so we do outline that we're going to start with online distribution, the smaller retailers, once we build that sort of customer base and it's established credibility in order to get into those larger retailers. That's when, after a few years, that's when we'll move towards that. But I think someone asked an earlier question about the influencers and the marketing budget. And just to real quickly touch on that, the great thing about influencers is there are really small influencers that still have a lot of clout with their following. So there are influencers that will happily post about something if they get sent a free product, and maybe they only have 5,000 followers or 10,000 followers, but then those followers feel that closer connection with that influencer, since it seems more like, just a real person as opposed to someone huge like a celebrity or something. So that's kind of how we anticipated keeping our marketing budget pretty small.
Hi, I'm Nia, and this is Andres and Dina. Today, we'll walk you through the problem we're addressing, our solution, and the business model. We present to you Lyra. Lyra is bringing AI-based lip reading software to voiceless individuals. I'd like for you to imagine something now. Think of the last time you were talking on Zoom, only to realize that you were muted that whole time. You would be frustrated, but only temporarily, and it would be easy enough to unmute yourself and move on. Now imagine that instead of being behind a computer screen at home, you're in a hospital bed and there's nothing you can click to unmute yourself. I've seen this scenario countless times. As a future clinician, I'm working alongside a team of medical and other professionals to bring next generation voice restoration technology to voiceless individuals. How does this even happen? Voicelessness often follows a sudden, unexpected critical illness Over 1 million people each year require a life-saving breathing procedure that inactivates the vocal cords, preventing speech during some of the most challenging moments of a person's life. Lyra is a healthcare technology company focused on developing AI-based solutions. We offer a software tool that significantly improves the communication of those who have lost their voice. We partner with both voiceless individuals and healthcare systems to deliver lip reading technology, which empowers voiceless individuals while advancing their medical care. And this is a team that is bringing Lyra's vision to life, a diverse group of medical experts and clinicians who have over 20 years of healthcare experience. Our team can break down barriers, quickly getting into hospitals. Our CEO is a frontline clinician working with the voiceless population daily. Each of us are driven by a personal connection to medicine, and we aim to achieve the best for the voiceless individual. Despite the widespread prevalence of voicelessness, the current methods are archaic, inefficient, and not easily accessible. Alternative methods of communication include pen and paper, pointing to a picture board, and gesturing, like playing charades. The current voice restoration tools are invasive, have a significant learning curve, and are often unavailable for the first 5 to 21 days or more after becoming voiceless. These communication tools are failing individuals, leading to social withdrawal in 75% of people. This is not insignificant, and this results in a $4 million loss per hospital, totaling $12 billion for the entire healthcare system because of this miscommunication every year. The incidence of voicelessness is increasing rapidly across the United States. For example, at UNC, between 2008 and 2019, we've seen a 338% spike in voiceless resulting procedures due to aging population trends, increased incidence of head and neck cancer. The time is now for next generation voice restoration to meet this nightmare of an unmet need. Dina will now walk you through our solution.
Thank you, Nia. So recent advancements in artificial intelligence have been revolutionizing all industries, and this will only help pioneer more novel solutions in medicine. So the current market for artificial intelligence in hospitals specifically is $6.6 billion with an 11 times market growth rate. On the left, you can see Lyra's next generation lip reading tool. This is a software application that can be downloaded onto any hospital tablet. The tablet's video camera will then capture lip movements and send them back to the cloud for processing. After being analyzed by our machine learning algorithm, the speech predictions are then sent back to the tablet as audio and text. Our software provides these 3 main benefits. We restore voice earlier than current tools, which improves communication efficiency between patients and providers, and this increases access to patients' voice restoration. Lyra's software allows individuals to speak at a conversational rate, decreasing communication time by 1/3, delivering immediate voice restoration. Our first 18 months have been incredible with product evolution. By March of 2020, we developed this proof of concept model showing that yes, we could use artificial intelligence to lip read. In January, we developed software to landmark dynamic facial movement, as you can see on the screen. Lyra then designed the structure of the software to optimize translation predictions, and we deployed all these components on the cloud. We are excited to link all of this IP together for testing in April, while also finalizing the licensing agreements with UNC in preparation for commercialization. 2 other companies, DeepMind and Leopa, are also making strides in this lip reading space. DeepMind is solely focused on open lip reading or predicting any word in any language. Their accuracy, though, is only 60%, which is not clinically translatable. Leopa, on the other hand, is using a closed vocabulary approach, which is limited to just 20 set specific phrases, a challenging memory task for sick, hospitalized individuals. Lyra uses a revolutionary hybrid approach by combining these 2 methods, and by focusing on a health-centric vocabulary, while allowing for flexible sentence structure, Lyra will be the first to market. Throughout our exhaustive 350 plus customer interview journey, we've identified speech language pathologists, or SLPs, as our clinical champions and purchase initiators due to their fundamental role in treating voiceless patients. These SLPs have expressed that this is the first tool in their career that could make a true difference in the voiceless treatment paradigm. And the very patients that they've treated have exclaimed that they would race us to build this. And now Andres will take you through Lyra's business model.
Awesome. Thank you, Dina. Let's dive into the Lyra's market focus as well as our financials. Urban hospitals perform 97% of voiceless inducing procedures. We're going to be focused on 3% market share of this beachhead between 2022 and 2024. Now, the total hospital market includes up to 7,000 facilities and about a 1.5 billion market cap. Expansion into facilities beyond these hospitals, including skilled nursing facilities, for example, is going to open Lyra up to a $3 billion market. Lyra has connected with 7 frontline SLPs from major healthcare institutions covering the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, the South, and the Midwest, all who have expressed their commitment in testing Lyra's solution. We anticipate launching across these departments beginning in Q4 of this year, with a focus on our North Carolinian home base. We were selected as the first UNC venture backed by Microsoft for Startups Partner Program. Our corporate champion at Microsoft provides access to AI expertise, as well as the computational credits that are accelerating our product development. Lyra is also poised to become a co-sell partner, allowing us to leverage their outside sales force and also their marketplace for applications, commercial applications, to scale this business exponentially. And finally, Lyra was selected by the Clinton Foundation out of a very competitive international pool of innovators. Their capital and network support has accelerated our marketing efforts going into this critical 2022 year. Let's discuss pricing. So Lyra is delivered as a SaaS-based model. Our subscription offerings are tiered, allowing for variability in the hospital size and patient load across all of our customers. Tier 1 is the smallest, so this allows for the care of up to 200 voiceless individuals every single year, while Tier 3 allows a hospital with about a 600 patient load to care for them seamlessly. A revenue boosting characteristic of our model includes multiple add-on features, sort of an a la carte that can be integrated across all of these tiers. These include multilingual capabilities, personalized voice, and enterprise integration. These were all tested through conjoint analysis and qualitative services so that we could be able to price them across the board.
Can I ask a question on that? On the tiers?
Absolutely.
Is it, could somebody buy Tier 1 and be a 1,000 patient hospital? Is it seats? Is it tablets that they get? Is it, what's the governor of how you can manage that, or how people decide what they want?
Yes, yeah, that's an excellent question, because it breaks down what our patient load assumptions are. So we anticipate that 5 devices will be able to care for a patient load of about 200 based on patient turnover per month. So based on all of the weeks of the year, we believe that 5 can address about a 3 to 4 patient turnover every single week, meaning that every patient has access to a device that has the software downloaded onto their tablet. We don't provide the hardware. We don't give them tablets or phones or anything like that. What we provide is that access key so they can download the software and have it on their own personal hospital-owned tablets. Now that gets scaled up, and what we found is that the average patient load for some of the biggest hospitals across the United States is about 550 patients that they see that go voiceless and may require this technology. So we've added a little bit more of a buffer up to 600 so that we are sure that every patient can be accounted for, from the smallest facility, which could be a skilled nursing facility, up to the largest urban health system up in the Northeast with Mass General. Does that sort of get at your question?
Yeah. The other thing I was wondering about was, so much seems like it's of your success would be just getting trial, and 100,000. I mean, there's just been 100 and 150, frankly, is nothing. I mean, if you think about it per month. You know, that's a pretty small. I'm wondering if you thought about like just a really low entry level, so that somebody can say, look, we're going to try it with 2 devices or something for 50 or 25,000, just to get them using the product and say, wow, we need this on every floor or every wing or whatever.
Yeah, that is the golden question, one that has kept us up at night, but that we've dedicated significant resources towards understanding. So what we've researched and what we understand from our hospital interviews are that these sales cycles could take anywhere from 7 months up to 2 years max. Sometimes they won't call you for about a year. This is feedback from one of the CIOs at another AI tech company. And all of a sudden, they ordered a bunch of material from them after a year of silence. So what we've determined is that we have two routes. Currently, we have these 7 beta pilot test areas. That's specifically to make sure that the device is ready for commercialization in 2022. So the contract work we've developed for those betas are that they would allow us to get into their facility free of cost. They can use our software, but what we get in return is that we get a reference, we get 30 to 60 minutes bi-weekly so that they can provide feedback. We can integrate that feedback and optimize the model. At the same time, we'd see about every SLP could see about 2 to 15 patients per day. So we're consistently getting data on how the market is interacting, and thereby produce sort of a referral network. That SLP floor then leads to multiple wings, multiple SLP specializations, eventually up to the ICU chair. But that's all provided that we have that consistent feedback to make sure the product is coming back stronger. After our beta contracts are over, we intend to enact a pilot contract. So the pilot contract is a little bit longer, about 6 months. And we have talked to our legal team about turning that into an automatic revenue generating pipeline, as long as everything goes up to par. Their patients are getting the treatment that they deserve. The feedback is coming back positive. We're responsive. The patient load is increasing, and they're seeing all of this become integral into their operations. So that's further down the line, hopefully starting at the end of this year, seeping into 2022. And then potentially getting up to 8 or 10 hospitals on a revenue generating contract by the end of next year. I know that was a lot, but that sort of get at what you were asking about traction at the beginning.
With respect to pricing, this is really interesting to me. I have a company that I own. It's called Voice Trail, and it does voice analytics. And so this kind of hit close to home. We charge on a per hour analyzed basis. So it's basically, you know, how many hours you run. And I was also curious as far as other applications that might be used for this, like in customer service or things like that. And have you thought about relicensing the software for other applications?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question. And I'm actually going to go off script a little bit and try to show sort of our vision, our roadmap. We believe health-centric approach is going to get us into the market and penetrate, and we'll be able to accomplish our goals on a personal and professional level. But we do see applications of lip reading technology across every household going into the future. Just like you said, there's some type of licensing opportunity with data monetization. We've been studying the academic realm, cybersecurity, financials, DoD, currently thinking through how can we potentially achieve a grant from the government with regards to an SBIR. But in order to achieve that market expansion, we need to evolve that technology. So currently, we are very focused on phrases like, I need my pain medication, or can you call my doctor, or I'm in pain generally. We want to, with the data that's being acquired through our R&D efforts, be able to expand that vocabulary so that we can apply that to telemedicine efforts, for example. COVID showed us that virtual is an asset, and in order to deliver health, in case there's ever interruptions or there's need for specific patient populations such as deafness or other areas that are using telemedicine, then we can be that amplifier for Zoom, other web conference applications, Microsoft Teams. Getting into those types of revenue models would also expand this business beyond just the inpatient, in-hospital application.
Thanks for answering my question.
Absolutely. I'll go back to the pricing. Are there any other questions regarding this? Okay, I will proceed.
I want you to be able to keep going, but just multilingual, just what are the other languages that will be included in that?
Oh, 100%. So right now we are seeing Spanish as the lowest hanging fruit. It's not just because of general US patient demographics, but we're seeing that the incidence of, for example, tracheostomy, which is one of these procedures, it's basically placing a breathing tube to the neck. And so what happens is you lose that ability to generate voice. The incidence amongst Hispanics, Latinos across the United States jumped from about 7% up to about 18% in the past decade. Whereas the incidence around white populations has decreased slightly. So we see that there's going to be a significant need, especially around these urban demographics where there are large concentration of Spanish speakers. So that is our next hanging fruit. And we see it as necessary for a lot of our customers to be able to have that in-house.
Andres, I'm curious about how you guys will account for accents or use of slang. Like even just here in the US, the way people say words is, differently from one city to the next, let alone regions of the country. So how will you account for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what our device is measuring is optical flow across the lips, and it's essentially it's called a phoneme. So every movement of the lips generates a specific sound. Across accents, currently what we are building internally is a very diverse body of data. That's also part of our IP. We have a large data pool with representation across intentionally a very general US population so that we can capture all of those different nuances. When it comes to phonemes, it's a little bit less distinct across accents, but definitely something that our technology will continue to evolve on. And so we built the data pool, but also more importantly, we built a proprietary data acquisition tool, which makes it easier than ever for you to be on your couch, volunteer a minute of your time, deliver 10 phrases from anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the globe, and it automatically gets fed into our servers and applied. It goes through a vetting process and applied as part of our algorithm. And as long as we continue to build that, we have the data as a proprietary potential monetization vehicle, and we have that tool that we can potentially leverage as something that will expedite efforts across other people, other companies that are trying to acquire data.
That's great. Thank you.
Related to Caroline's question, Andres, I saw that in the presentation about being, what you just described, people being able to just read these phrases so that you capture this database. How does it account for, things like elderly, getting young and elderly people whose lip movement? I mean, a lot of the elderly, my parents, when they have been in the hospital, they're not well, they're not feeling well. There's a lot less lip movement. There's much less just movement to how they're saying things and with their weak or strained. Does it account for that to be able to read, elderly's, because I think that'd be a big application, elderly's actual minimal kind of mouth movements when you're building that database? Does it account for getting younger people, older people, a full breadth of population?
That you're hitting the nail on the head. So the way that we account for that is we have to be very, very punctual with the type of experimentation, the actual sites where we're targeting this data acquisition tool. So for example, I'll give you the other side of the spectrum is imagine an intubated patient. During COVID, tracheostomies went up, mechanical ventilations went up. Someone that has a tube in their mouth to be able to breathe will not be able to move their lips as efficiently, obviously. But our application does intend to get to that level of granularity. It's going to take investment, it's going to take patience, and it's going to take the smarts behind this IP to be able to build an algorithm that's able to detect minimal movement. For the time being, we're building that up. And for example, one of our experiments that we'll be deploying soon is that we intend to put up marketing around clinical sites at local pharmacies so that we can attract people getting vaccinations to use this. It's a QR code. Anyone can put that on their phone and patients currently that are getting their vaccines. Now it's getting a little bit younger, but essentially the idea was that we would want to collect anyone from ages 65 and above to go ahead and sort of be a part of this experimentation. Now that's of course very hypothesized based. We intend to look at other sites that would be potentially more appropriate for collecting that data, potentially at the hospital while people are waiting. Like we said, we're trying to make it so that it is seamless. The same way you scroll on Instagram and look at people's feeds, or the same way that someone searches for something on Google, we want to make it so that within a minute you can contribute 10 phrases. Excellent. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward to our go-to-market summary. So as I was mentioning, we've been doing a bunch of A/B testing throughout this quarter. Our key lead generators we anticipate will include social, search, published healthcare content, and healthcare conferences. And our beta customer roster that I mentioned a couple of slides ago will allow us to build that credibility, the data, the references, and that critical product feedback that's going to unlock capital so that we can build an inside sales force to begin with. We anticipate significant financial upside as we ramp up our sales force efforts and capture 3% market share across urban hospitals. We're projected to achieve $47 million in revenue by 2026, which would allow us to quadruple our customer base across those latter years in 2024 through 2026. Our team's vision goes beyond voicelessness, as I was mentioning, and into deafness, telemedicine, and much more. And market expansion captures just more than healthcare. We believe there's a place for lip reading technology in every single household and potentially across the private sector as well. Now, in reference to return on investment, we believe it's achievable as our current financial model projects a break even at 30 months post-launch with about $6.7 million in revenue. Variable, fixed, and wages expenses represent 24% of that total revenue by 2026. And I can go into the breakdowns for that initial year as well. Now the ask. So to date, Lyra's network has believed in our growth, and we've raised 40% of our 2021 pilot deployment capital goals. So we're looking for an additional 150,000 to accelerate our beta pilot execution. This early growth is going to allow us to place Lyra across the US throughout 2022 with the ultimate goal of impacting up to 250,000 voiceless individuals by 2026. I can also say that in the next year, we intend to raise up to a convertible note round of about $1 million, but that would work in succession over multiple closing periods. So we're not looking for that full amount, but we do believe that could give us an extensive runway throughout 2022 so we can continue to scale up beyond the initial 10 hospitals.
In the 150,000, what percent of the company would that investor obtain?
150,000 today. So mostly we've been looking for non-dilutive funding. We've participated in several grants, competitions, pitches, and that's how we've been able to manage the $100,000 that have been raised thus far. Now, with relations to the $150,000, we want to continue that non-dilutive process. We've also applied for SBIR grants through the NIH and intend to submit a government application for the NSF come the summertime. Now, regarding the $1 million, our early valuation right now for that round would constitute a conversion into equity of about $1 million for $3 million pre-money. And that's absolutely if we continue to the trajectory on the traction that we have right now and actually initiate those pilot programs that we expect in Q4. That will be part of the deal. We have to prove that so that we can show traction and show that patients are actually seeing this.
So just review again how far you are with the AI algorithm. Is it you're doing beta testing, so it's just review how far along you are.
100%. Team, I don't know if you want to walk us a little bit through the IP that we've currently generated.
Yeah, I can go over this. So we've basically developed multiple components of this pipeline. You know, it's not just one piece of code. There's multiple components that go into this, like this pipeline for processing and normalizing data. There's a part where we extract the lip features and normalize it to a standard face, and this helps with security and the you can't it basically creates an anonymous lip face, so you can't go back to the original source of this data. We've also developed a pipeline for gathering this data. As Andre said, it's a proprietary system where anyone can volunteer their time and read certain sentences, and this data is the basis for all of machine learning training. So the machine learning algorithm will watch these videos and learn how different people say the same sentence, essentially. And we've also developed the user interface for our device, which you may have seen on an earlier slide that I presented. And we've also got the data set itself. So all of the videos we've collected, many gigs of data, thousands of videos, and this is all going to be a part of our IP.
That data set is ongoing because, as some of the judges pointed out, we need to be able to account for the smallest of nuances if we really truly want to have a competitive edge versus any other players in the healthcare space.
So with a lot of the successful technologies today, there's that networking effect with AI, whether it's Uber, Spotify, Netflix. I mean, the more you use it, the more intelligent it gets. Is that happening here? It looks like, I mean, I see all the components of it, but
yeah,
seems
yeah,
like
definitely.
The more customers you get.
Yeah, part of that success is that back in March of 2020, when we developed the first AI to prove that this is a reality, we can lip read. Our latency, we were at 82% accuracy. Our goal is 90 or above, but also our latency wasn't there up to par. So as of the past quarter, in under 12 months, we've been able to pull down that latency to just around 10 seconds. So if we put this device in front of someone to lip read, we'll have a 10-second lag. Now that's operating with the minimal technological requirements. That's using 10 megabytes per second upload, 20 megabytes per second download. Our CTO working out of her room and making sure that we're running these experiments. That already is better than a patient that just woke up from cancer surgery and is asked to write something on a boogie board, which can take minutes, to be honest. And so those 10 seconds are critical because that patient can get a message out in their very poor state and condition already as it stands. And we intend to bring that latency down to about 2 seconds, sub 2 seconds, if possible, by the end of the year.
Do you have pretty firm costs and projections on what that tech stack's going to look like to bring the latency down, and that you're raising enough funds to do that? Because it does seem like that's going to be a pretty significant and costly investment to kind of take it to the next step on the tech side.
Yes, so we've broken down the unit economics on our end in terms of cost of services sold. But to start off, in order to get the R&D this year to that level of sub 2 seconds, we have $125,000 worth of Microsoft computational credits that have allowed us. I think we've depleted about 10% of that. That has allowed us to get to the 10 seconds. We also have a reserve of $145,000 worth of computational credits from IBM that are waiting for us in case we need that. And beyond that, we also have computational credits from Amazon, their AWS service. Now, to break down the unit economics, we're at about, let's say, I want to say a 25% margin. That's exactly it. 25% margin in terms of our revenue to the cost of services sold. 8% of that has to do with computational credits. Now, the beauty of SaaS is that as you scale, as we jump across that 100 hospital threshold, we'll be able to scale from right now, it costs about $2 to $4 per hour, per computational hour for us to run the servers across a potential of 10 hospitals. But if we get to 100 hospitals and all those devices operating at the same time, that unit cost would drop down to about $1.25 to $2.50. So our full intention is to be as successful as possible, take advantage of SaaS and take advantage of the computational credits that have been awarded to us right now to have that ramp up and get to that 2% sub 2 second latency.
So as we dive in, I'd like to ask everyone to take a deep breath in and out. I'm Steven, co-founder of MyAuto2, and at MyAuto2, we believe that the breath you just took and every breath you take matters. Breathing is vital for life, so it's fair to assume that administering oxygen in a medical setting should be pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, for the 25 million patients in the US who require supplemental oxygen each year, it's a different reality. Nearly all patients receiving supplemental oxygen are on a suboptimal flow, while healthcare providers waste precious time and energy dealing with an antiquated system. MyAuto2 envisions a new method using modern technology, and we're excited to tell you more. But first, here's how oxygen is delivered today. When a patient is started on oxygen, the clinician estimates and manually adjusts a fixed flow based loosely on the patient's vital signs, and that's it. The flow is then evaluated and adjusted every 4 to 6 hours, and whatever happens in the interim just sort of happens. Shockingly, despite being around for nearly a century, oxygen therapy still lacks standard guidelines, creating highly inconsistent experiences for patients and providers. This guess and check methodology is based on two flawed assumptions. One, that there's no such thing as too much oxygen, and two, that oxygen is cheap. Research has effectively debunked these theories. Studies suggest that over 95% of patients aren't receiving the correct amount of oxygen, and liberal oxygen, which is commonly used today, results in 84% of patients receiving too much oxygen and a 20% increase in mortality. Having too much or too little oxygen in a patient's blood can lead to an array of other bad outcomes too.
Even
for hospitals.
Is that 95% number? That just was staggering to me. Is that 95% widely understood? That, man, it just seems so, it's almost everybody is getting too much or too little. And
that's correct. Yep.
And it is understood throughout the industry and the medical field that, yeah, when patients come in, almost all of them are either going to get too much or too little.
Yes, it is understood that it is a very imprecise method of administration that, given the tools that exist today, there's not really any way to do better than that. So, do you want me to keep going, or any more questions about that? Okay. So for hospitals, administering oxygen to patients is surprisingly expensive. First, oxygen gas alone costs hospitals on average $500 per patient. And since administering oxygen isn't billable, this cost directly impacts the margin for each patient treated. Second, hospitals spend a substantial amount of time and resources administering supplemental oxygen. For example, one study conducted at Michigan Medicine suggested respiratory therapists walk over 5 miles per day, with an estimate of 20% of their time spent walking between patients just to check and manually adjust the oxygen flow. Third, getting patients off of oxygen is a necessary step in the discharge process that often becomes a bottleneck, meaning patient stays are frequently extended unnecessarily. Between increased costs and missed revenue opportunities, this inefficient manual process costs hospitals over $5,000 per patient treated. Several physicians we've spoken with have even acknowledged frequently keeping patients an extra night just to make sure they're really safe to go home off of oxygen. The way we've been administering supplemental oxygen fails patients and providers. Now I'd like to hand you off to MyAuto2's other co-founder, Stu Kerr, to tell you about our solution.
Thanks, Steven. I'd like to introduce MILESTONES, the first company in the US to develop technology that automatically adjusts oxygen flow rates based on each patient's personalized needs. Our patent pending device, which we're referring to currently as product 1.0, will create a more effective and efficient way for patients to receive and for providers to administer supplemental oxygen. So recalling that patient room from earlier, now you'll see how our product 1.0 can transform supplemental oxygen therapy and seamlessly integrate with the hospital's existing oxygen delivery infrastructure. Product 1.0 connects to an oxygen source, so the wall-mounted valve shown here in the picture, or a mobile oxygen tank, and modulates the oxygen gas flow delivered to the patient using a predictive algorithm. Pertinent information is displayed on the screen and uploaded into a patient's chart regularly, so clinicians have unprecedented insight and monitoring capabilities about the patient's current situation. With the auto-wean mode, Product 1.0 will prioritize getting patients off of oxygen efficiently while maintaining safe oxygen levels, which will ultimately increase clinician confidence when discharging patients and improve process efficiency. Product 1.0 also offers unique safety features, which we're happy to discuss further detail during the Q&A. And now I'll hand it over to Kendrick, who will tell you a little bit more about the device itself.
Thanks, Stu. Our device leverages three novel elements: a manufacturable, safe, and effective device hardware design that accurately delivers oxygen, an intuitive user interface for clinicians to monitor and glean insights into a patient's respiratory status, and a personalized algorithm that uses patient biometric data as inputs and responds to the patient's specific oxygen needs, all of which we're happy to discuss further. As you can see, MILESTONES product 1.0 now has a patent pending status for which we filed a comprehensive provisional patent in March 2021, which covers the device design, algorithm, method of delivery, and some potential future features. By March 2022, we will file full utility patents for the aspects outlined in the provisional patent, as well as international patent cooperation treaties as we seek to expand beyond domestic markets. Here's a brief demonstration of the product 1.0. In this accelerated demonstration, we are simulating changes in patient data with a potentiometer while seeing just how the algorithm modulates the oxygen flow rate. The device automatically adjusts the flow rate until the target saturation is achieved. With that, Alex will outline the competitive landscape.
MILESTONES' primary competition is the status quo, but as noted previously, our product is specifically designed to supplement the existing oxygen infrastructure and therefore does not require hospitals to replace any equipment. Beyond this, there are no competing automatic oxygen delivery devices in the US. MILESTONES will realize a first mover advantage if it becomes the first FDA-cleared automated oxygen titration device available in the US market. Still, at least two companies are developing competitive technologies: Canada-based OxyNav and Denmark-based O2matic. Based on publicly available information, neither appear to be performing US clinical trials or engaging with the FDA. Our product will differentiate itself from this potential competition by providing a better user experience, more robust safety features, and higher titration accuracy via our predictive personalized algorithm, as well as other valued customer benefits. MILESTONES has defined three initial markets for product 1.0: acute care hospital settings, long-term care facilities, and the at-home market. The acute care hospital market is the largest total addressable market size at $11 billion globally and $1.4 billion in the US. Acute care hospitals offer the strongest market pull and will be the area we attack first. Given that about half of long-term acute care facilities are affiliated with acute care hospitals, and that MILESTONES could help address long-term acute care facilities' low clinician to patient ratios, we plan to cross-sell into LTACs as we penetrate the acute care market. MILESTONES will eventually address the $9.8 billion at-home market after launching in the acute care and LTAC markets. Although the at-home market is attractive for many reasons, our view is that launching in the inpatient setting first will significantly reduce barriers to the at-home market. Our beachhead market consists of 145 academic medical centers where MILESTONES' value proposition aligns with acute operational needs, and that represents a $250 million market opportunity. Our goal is to have captured virtually our entire beachhead market by the end of year 8. Here you can see several initial prospective clients where we already have established relationships. Next, Stu will speak to our timeline to launch and our commercial strategy, and we'll outline exactly how we plan to win our beachhead.
Great, thanks, Alex. So in order to bring product 1.0 to market, we'll need to gain FDA clearance by demonstrating product safety and effectiveness. We're using medtech regulatory and development experts to help formulate an effective FDA strategy, including IntoBeing LLC and Design Solutions, Inc., who are two device development and product commercialization partners. With their support, we've started to establish a robust quality management system that the FDA will want to see in our submission. We'll also need to undertake significant clinical research to validate that product 1.0 can safely, effectively deliver oxygen as intended and bring the value to both patients and providers that we believe that can add. From a timelines perspective, we plan to complete our minimally viable product by early 2022, which we will then use for our initial clinical testing across the course of the year. After gathering initial validation data, we plan to engage the FDA in pre-submission meetings, which are important checkpoints for the device development process. By 2023, we plan to have refined our minimally viable product and generated robust clinical data. This data will form the basis for publishing several peer-reviewed articles to help educate the medical community on the advantages of automated oxygen delivery, as well as lay the foundation for our FDA submission. By 2024, we seek to gain FDA clearance and launch product 1.0 with first sales to be following quickly. So as I was saying, selling into hospitals is a multidimensional process that requires buy-in from several stakeholders within the institution. Based on our customer discovery and initial market research, we've identified two key stakeholders that we believe will be the ultimate decision makers on purchasing our product. That's department heads, who are typically the budget holders for their specific focus area, and hospital administrators who look at finances across the entire hospital or even the health system. Gaining buy-in from other key influencers and users is also going to be critical. So that includes respiratory therapists, nurses, physicians, and hospital innovation offices. So overall, MILESTONES plans to use a lean sales force that includes founders like Stephen and myself to make high-touch sales calls to these hospital leaders and ultimately convert these clinical users and department heads into product champions that will drive enterprise-level sales across the hospital or the health system. We'll also leverage the connections that we established through our scientific advisory board to initiate relationships, both for potential customers as well as with medical associations for marketing purposes.
Stu, I have a question about this. You mentioned earlier in the presentation that one of the misconceptions or previous understandings was that too much oxygen was not, it was not necessarily a bad thing. How widely accepted is it that that is no longer true? Or is a major part of this kind of an awareness campaign to educate and make it clear that that's no longer kind of a viable assumption to make?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll start, and then Stephen, feel free to jump in from the medical perspective. But so we've done about a little over 40 customer discovery conversations since starting the company, and our impression from just that small sample size is that everybody kind of recognizes that this is an issue and that they're not getting the right amount of oxygen. I think that's probably slightly skewed towards academic institutions that tend to be a little bit more research oriented, and we're ultimately hoping to address the broader acute care market beyond our beachhead. But I also think that there is definitely going to be an educational element to our sales and marketing strategy here, whether it's associating with some of these medical associations like the AARC and ATS and CHEST. But I also think that's why we've really been deliberate about wanting to build our own sales force, because there's going to be a fairly heavy marketing element that's going to be going into our selling strategy versus just partnering with a distribution partner or selling it online. Stephen, is there anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah. So a big challenge that's associated with really understanding kind of at a granular level the role that supplemental oxygen plays and the risks associated with supplemental oxygen is the rigidity with which it's administered today in a medical setting. So certainly when we speak with academic physicians, they're very excited about the research potential that's also associated with a device like this, because we will be able to gain significantly deeper and clearer understandings of how to administer supplemental oxygen. There's no question that it does have inherent risks and that inappropriate administration leads to worse outcomes. But how do we optimize the therapy? That's a question that MIADO2's device will really allow us to explore in greater detail as a medical community.
Cool, thank you. Great, thanks, Stephen. So in terms of our actual kind of go-to-market model here, MIADO2 will offer two buying modalities for customers, direct sales and device leasing. For customers who seek to purchase the device outright, MIADO2 will charge $6,500 per device in addition to annual service fees. Alternatively, MIADO2 will offer a lease price of $135 per month per device, representing $8,000 in total value capture for MIADO2 over its 5-year lifespan of the device. This leasing model strategically avoids the hospital capital budgeting process, since lower monthly payments typically fall beneath the procurement thresholds set by institutions. So we view this as advantageous for both customers who are able to chip away at the cost over time, as well as for MIADO2 because it's a consistent revenue stream for us. With both of these modalities, though, we'll also consider strategic distribution partnerships to expand MIADO2's commercial reach if necessary. And we'll also explore disposable device elements such as specialized tubing that could be recurring revenue opportunities for the company.
So what's the calculation for how many devices per 100 beds, or how do you look at it? I mean, is it every hospital room would have one, or is it 10 per floor, or how does that work?
Yeah, Alex, do you want to speak? I know that you put a fair amount into the pricing analysis.
Sure. So our assumption has been conservatively that about 25% of patients are administered supplemental oxygen. We actually believe that that number is significantly higher, closer to around 50% of patients in an inpatient setting. And so our calculations are based off of assuming the device would be placed into 25% of beds in our hospital enterprise clients. And so we then calculated based on our understanding of cost savings that the device can create, which we addressed slightly earlier, and which we have some slides in the appendix that we can speak to specifics if you're curious. Calculated total potential cost savings to the hospital based on 25% of the rooms having devices, and those devices servicing patients, the proportion of patients who are placed on supplemental oxygen.
It's actually really interesting.
I was just going to add on to the sales question. It's great that you've identified the hospital administrators as well as the department heads are really the decision makers. Can you talk more about the sales cycle? What does that look like?
Sure. So we've, based on our initial customer discovery, we've kind of identified two different types of customers, and those kind of being those two different ownership models. So for example, at Michigan Medicine, the director of respiratory therapy has complete budget autonomy under a certain threshold that he can go out and immediately purchase a device or a group of devices that he's interested in. For other institutions that maybe have larger group purchasing, Henry Ford Health here in the Metro Detroit area is an example of that, have a more, I would say protracted approach to how they go through their procurement process. So typically these hospital administrators will want to see data based on our device's ability to generate cost savings or revenue opportunities. And then they'll take that to a value committee, which then will meet, I think typically quarterly, but it also depends by institution, and will then determine whether or not the budget can be allocated towards that particular device at that given moment in time. So again, these relationships are really important, and that's why we're thinking about this not only as targeting the two key decision makers, but also the users, because physicians, respiratory therapists, nurses, if they're all saying, hey, MIADO2's got an awesome device that's going to save us time, money, and energy, then that can influence the value committee's approach to how they bring on and procure new devices.
On average, are we talking 6 to 12 months, 9 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think on average, it's probably in the 6 to 8 month range.
Okay.
But again, it's going to vary a little bit by institution.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions on that? Great. So Alex, I'll hand it over to you to talk about some of our financials.
Thanks, Stu. So here we can see some of the high-level takeaways from year 8 of our projected pro forma. Note that given the clinical research and regulatory clearance necessary to commercialize an innovative medical device, which we were speaking to earlier, our team took a slightly longer view on projected financials. Based on strong market pull, we anticipate $250 million in annual revenue by year 8 with 65% gross margins. Our gross margin calculation is based on cost of goods sold estimated via the prototyping process. MILESTONES 2 will generate $88 million of EBITDA in year 8, representing a 35% EBITDA margin. Other key metrics include that we expect to have captured about 150 total customers by penetrating just north of 6% of all US hospital beds. Additional information on our 8-year pro forma is in the appendix, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on the financials either now or later during the Q&A session.
So on this, what's the breakdown of a lease versus purchase of the 250?
We assumed 50-50, basically based on a couple of early customer discovery conversations. We felt that that was probably the best breakdown. So it's sort of in half front load some of the revenue capture through the direct sales model, and then in others spreads that revenue capture out over time through the leasing model.
And that'll again depend on customer institution preference. So Michigan Medicine is very much we like to buy our devices and hold on to them through their life cycle, whereas other institutions who have maybe more protracted procurement processes. And the one thing I failed to mention when we were talking about the procurement process previously is customers really dislike this process too. If they want a device and want to get something in the door quickly to add value for their team and for patients, they hate having to go through a really long value committee process. So again, this leasing model was we thought a really great idea that we learned about early in our customer discovery process that felt like it could be a win-win in those cases. So again, as we get a little bit closer to market, we'll likely be able to very quickly identify what the buying procedures look like at each institution. I come from a sales background, so that's very much my kind of area of enjoyment and expertise. So thinking about that in a little bit more tactical detail will be a growth, something that we do as we get farther along in our growth.
Joe Hawes here. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed reading your presentation. It was the first one I read. These are very impressive numbers. I'd keep them secret. The plaintiff's attorneys start finding out about this, and anyone who dies, they're going to point to oxygen. I was curious if you if this would work for children and infants, if you had a product for them.
I'll jump in here.
Stephen, I'll let you speak to that. Yep.
Yeah. From a medical necessity perspective, infants and especially premature birth patients benefit from accurate oxygen titration, and it is certainly a market we recognize as being high need from a medical perspective, also very sensitive from a regulatory perspective. So not a beachhead market for us, but definitely a direction we will head as soon as possible.
Do you think that many of your competitors are avoiding the U.S. market due to the litigation?
I don't think we're in a position where we could say, I mean, whatever we say would be highly speculative. I think that closed loop technology is increasingly supported by the FDA and is showing up in other disease states, both in an inpatient and outpatient setting. And this is a relatively new phenomenon for the FDA, for them to kind of accept that a machine could theoretically make a medical decision instead of a human. I think that supplemental oxygen is low enough risk that this will certainly be within a tolerable or fit within a risk tolerance that the FDA could work with. And we've built in significant safety features to the device to support an FDA approval as well. So litigation, I don't mean to minimize the potential risk for it, but we've been very thoughtful about building in safety features from the get-go, and we'll continue to think about it as we develop the device.
You answered it, and you brought it up in your presentation. I appreciate it. Good job.
follow on to safety, what in your licensing agreement or even the direct, what does your maintenance look like? Not only costs, but actually how will you deploy boots on the ground for maintenance, especially because you're hardware and software?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we, the way that we're thinking about it right now, and then Alex, I saw you came off mute, so you can add anything that I missed. But the way that we're thinking about it right now is we, as a part of our commercial team, plan to have a customer success function. So we may have individuals who are actually performing kind of boots on the ground maintenance on the device elements itself. I think ultimately we'd love to have the device be modular so that it'd be relatively easy to pull out elements of the device that need to be updated or fixed versus having to replace the entire device. And then hopefully with the software piece, a key benefit here is being able to just push out an update if there's bugs or anything that we need to fix in the software coding itself.
And I was just going to say, from a cost perspective, it's something that we've built into our financial model. I forget exactly the percentage of revenue that we assumed would need to be dedicated to maintenance costs. I think it was maybe 1% or 1.5%, but it's certainly accounted for in our financial model as well.
What's the process for pushing out those upgrades? Is it attach it to a local laptop or wireless?
We plan on building from a hardware perspective a very robust device that will be able to accommodate future software upgrades, and it'll already be networked because there's a feature set that will be connected to the electronic health record system, and so should be able to do things through the air, obviously with in coordination with the hospital. I'd love to finish the presentation just so that we can tell you about our team and some of the progress that we've made. Stu, what do you think about us skipping ahead a bit?
Yeah, maybe we'll just cover the fundraising strategy, and then we'll go through those last two steps. But I think that's a good plan.
Yep. So real quick here, to commercialize the product, we would expect to raise between $25 and $30 million in equity capital from seed through Series B. This investment will allow MILESTONES to build a safe and effective product while funding clinical testing, FDA filing fees, inventory buildup, and our scaled commercial team. While we haven't received a formal valuation yet, the medical device category traditionally offers pretty attractive returns for investors. You can see here the average revenue multiple at exit is 5.8. And based on our projections, if we're acquired in year 8 at a typical revenue multiple, the exit valuation could exceed $1 billion. Investor returns would, of course, depend on post-money valuations during the fundraising process, but we believe MILESTONES' valuation at the time of acquisition could imply between a 10 and 20x return for investors, of course, depending on the cost of our equity financing. And there are a number of sort of comparable deals in the $750 million plus range from companies such as those seen here on the bottom.
Thank you for joining us for the semifinals competition. The winner of this track is Lyra from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Congratulations. We'll see you in the finals.